Hey Minan, we have the patient here that has an ileostomy and part of his intestine herniated out underneath, so we're going to send him out.
Okay, we'll call for the rescue ambulance to meet you at the bottom. Praying for you all.
You know, if you're just hiking for the fun, it's beautiful and it's a challenge. But when you're trying to save people's lives, it's a race between life and death.
But imagine being sick and having to hike. I mean, those of us in our Western environments, we stay home and stay in bed, you know, but in order for them to get help, they are hiking or somebody's carrying them. We have people that walk days to get here.
This clinic is the only clinic in the mountains in this area. Before the clinic was here, their options were either they would use their traditional medicine, they would use witchcraft, or they would just die.
Lang ko magbiag dyan nga at sakot biag kaya ko lang maguna do tagna si Indo baka si ama mabasagyawan na maglilibas bulan maglilibas taon maya nato atin unang misyonary na ato dyan pang nagsugi jud daman mag misyonary kaya ato ang pang manabangkay mga tao ato bagong yan atin tempo sa atin misyonary sang muna magulit dyan adot Amerika. Kinadoanan lang masakit natin ama ko bukong ko ama magbiag ko nga kung ko niya nga ko niya ko nginang ko kami atin sinigidya tinulo si atin misyonary ko niya ang badya ko din ko kay ato dyan dulong gutlong sudyo dan ko niya misan matoy ko kasi di paglipati atin mga misyonary. Siyama atin mereklam dinibit kasi tarikutan sa matari ko ini limbang kasi pa ulit bagong yan mapon atin indo ko nangalit sanglay uguli iyo maya dut karamut iyo na kung ko indo taka magsali ka kahit kiyama kanya diki kanya kainginan ko balang kami kanya kainginan ko balang kami kainginan ko hindi ko tirangan kami sa mat atin binatat ama mo mandi kanya tinirangan niya kisuk dakang kanya mandi ko yan tengah gabi masakit sa banar po ulit masakit po ulit bago magsyak yung banar bago magsyak ko sila banar ko ano ampo ka magsyak ko kanya magkaroon ng pumadin niya ko marinak nga indo atin ari ko mandi ko ba kalam ka naman mandi ko kalau di kayo magbiag kay si Uncle Andy baka si Pastor Kin Anday ko niya kasi di paglipati atin minsan dun dyan at lungsod dyan dun naman nilang atin magpulit dyan nga ito ko ba kuhanin naman nila po pagsulayan ko dun maging makasin na ang panglipatan natin di ko sa wadiki matay ko lang ko mura ako malipatan natin yung ko sakot tiban sakot tihat santin tayo ba tabangat mga misyonary sakot nasurang kay si ampo na may apulan paghingin na tao.
I feel very, very humbled that I get to be part of this story. There's more and more and more of those stories out there. And I cry. When you've invested a lot in people, it just touches you really deeply.
My experience here has made me realize, I guess, how fragile life can be. because things for these people can change from one day to the next. They can be fine one day, and the next day they can be bit by a snake and dying. I've seen a lot more death here than I ever saw in the States, and that can get hard to deal with. It's sad, especially when you see people die that don't know Jesus yet.
However we touch people, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, that we're aware of being God's hands, His heart for these people. And so like, even little kids going by or whatever, a loving touch is speaking volumes to them. They don't experience that at home. They see a hand move and it's a flinch.
But it's also exciting to see the ones that Jesus heals and to see how He makes them better, and especially if they give Him the glory, like if they realize that it's Him that made them well, and it's neat to see the miracles that God works.
It's interesting, sometimes people back in the United States, they'll ask and they'll say, "Are you having fun?" That doesn't seem like an appropriate question. It's sort of like asking somebody who's been to the war saying, "Did you have fun?"
Hey Ivan, how's it going?
Not well. He's declining fast. I hope we make it before dark.
True religion, basically put in a nutshell, is really caring about people, the people that nobody else cares about. Ultimately, I like to say, my purpose is to see people in heaven. If I can baptize them and they never make it to heaven, what have I accomplished? Nothing at all.
I could say honestly, we love these people before we ever met them. And the more we've invested, the deeper that love has grown.
Our next door neighbor, he got sick and he realized since we weren't here and the clinic wasn't open at that time, he had to get out of the mountains and get to medical help. Well, he hiked all the way out of the mountains and he got to the trailhead, and that's where he died. We had a girl that they carried her all the way up, and she was buried by the trail there. She came within half a mile of the clinic, and that was it. She didn't make it.
How does that affect you?
Well, you just... I guess when you see that kind of thing, at first I was going to say, well, you sort of get used to it, but I guess you don't get used to it. These people are like our family.
I don't know, how do you measure how much you love someone? I guess how much you're willing to give up for them. How much are our birth children willing to give up to be parted from us all these years? It's very much just a part of who we are as a family.
Every one of us eventually will die. Some people will die and all they have is a bunch of belongings and some money in the bank, and that's it. I want to invest somewhere where it's an investment for eternity, because if it's just money and things, that's going to all burn up someday. But I want to invest in the bank of heaven that pays dividends throughout the ceaseless ages. I want these Palawanas. I tell them over and over again, when the earth made new, you guys are going to be my neighbors. We're going to be living in a new Palawan. We're going to be living together. We're going to live together forever.
So when the going gets really hard, I think that's what keeps me going, is it's for that prize at the end and for the affirmation of Christ. Well done. Our hope, desire, and deep prayer is that when He's done with us, there's others to take up the banner and keep moving.
Good morning. All right, it's morning here anyway. I am happy to be with you today and share my story of how God has led and blessed in my life. And it has taken some very interesting turns, but I can say that God has been good at every turn and provided in amazing ways. I'd like to start off by sharing two of my favorite Bible verses taken from Psalms 103, verses 1 and 2, which says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits." And this has been a real blessing as I've jotted some notes and kind of traced my life. I don't remember ever doing a presentation like this. There are so many other things to talk about than myself, but I'm delighted to be able to share what God has done in my life. Beginning of my life was in Lincoln, Nebraska, northern U.S. state. I was the middle of 5 children, had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and we lived in Nebraska until I was 10 years of age. At the age of 10, I was beginning to get in trouble, kind of a nuisance in the community, and neighbors had called the police on me a couple of times. So my mother made a very wise choice. She moved us down to Arkansas, where we lived in the country and didn't have all the distractions of city life. So I lived in Arkansas until I was 18. During that time, I attended church schools, Christian schools, that really shaped my character and the choices that I made in the future. I was baptized as a Seventh-day Adventist when I was 12 years of age. However, I was baptized in a Baptist church. And the reason for that was it was February, and the pastor didn't want to baptize me in the little creek flowing through the Ozark Academy campus. So and our church didn't have a baptistry at the time. Well, at age of 14, I had 2 experiences that had profound influence on my future. First of all, that spring, my grandfather and grandmother drove down from Nebraska and spent a few days with us. We worked in the garden and had some nice quality time, and I hadn't spent much time with my grandfathers for several years, so it was a real blessing. But the night he drove back home to Nebraska, he was pretty tired, went to bed, and actually died in his sleep. That was made a profound impact upon my life because I loved my grandfather. And it was just a few months later that my best friend was killed in a hayride accident on a Sabbath evening church hayride. And both of those events helped me to determine that I wanted to live for Jesus so I could see my grandfather and my best friend again. I believe that the time is coming soon when Jesus will come in the clouds and we will see our loved ones and our friends again if we are faithful to him. Of course, since then, I've lost quite a few more friends and family, and each time we have to bury a loved one, it strengthens my resolve to live for Jesus. Not that I'm going to earn my way to heaven, but it's because I love Jesus and want to do what he desires. Well, then at age 16, another important experience occurred in my life, and I met my future wife. Of course, didn't know it at the time. We were just very good friends for about 5 years after that. In 1966, I completed high school there at Ozark Adventist Academy as the valedictorian of my class. Then went down to Texas and spent 3 years in college at Southwestern Adventist College, it was at that time. And in 1968, I married that best friend, Harriet, and then shortly after that, we moved to Union College, mainly because she was accepted at the University of Nebraska in the graduate dietetic training program, which also offered a master's degree in food and nutrition. She is actually the reason for my success in so many ways, because of her business background. Her master's had an emphasis in business and administration. During that time at Union College, those 2 years we were there, we really wanted to have her master's had an emphasis in business and administration. During that time at Union College, those 2 years we were there, we really wanted to have children. We love children. So we took in foster children, which was kind of as a story in itself, but we ended up taking care of about 5 different foster children while we were there, one of which we later adopted. Then in 1977, we moved to Loma Linda University, where I spent 1 year taking some additional classes, hoping to get into medicine. And my wife served as chief administrative dietitian at the Loma Linda University Medical Center. And while we were in Loma Linda, the 5 years, we actually had 2 of our own children. Oldest Chester Van III, and the next one was Amy Marie. We, upon finishing, well, I went there thinking the Lord would lead me into medical training, but my first year I also worked in the medical center as a nursing assistant and heard doctors and interns talking about their lifestyle in medical school and residencies, and I began to think that those 72-hour shifts they talked about wasn't really what I wanted to pursue. And at that point, the profession of dentistry looked much better to me. So I was accepted into the School of Dentistry, and in 1976 completed a degree in dentistry and also a master's degree in public health. Well, then in 1977 we moved back to Arkansas, where I developed what is called a scratch dental practice. And that sounds kind of strange, but a scratch practice, excuse me, is one that there's no dental practice to begin with. You're not buying someone's practice. You're actually starting from scratch. So the Lord blessed, and we were able to purchase a commercial building site on the main highway through a little town of Amity. At that time, the population was about 500 people. And I spent the first 6 months helping to build the practice that I had designed, and then began serving patients in the summer of 1977. The next 12 years were busy years. We had moved back to this area of Arkansas because there was no Adventist Christian witness in the area. So we were busy with church planting. We started a health center in the county seat, and we're busy doing health education programs, weight management, cooking schools, stop smoking programs, and that type of thing. And we were also busy starting the practice and doing preaching and teaching and homeschooling and gardening, building, traveling, and learning an awful lot during those beginning years. In 1988, we felt the Lord leading us to do something a little different. We had read a book in the early 80s called Madison, God's Beautiful Farm. And that book is basically a biography of Edward Sutherland and the story of Madison College back in Madison, Tennessee in the early 1900s, beginning in 1904. And we were so inspired with that story, we felt that God was leading us to do something similar in our area. So we put out a fleece before the Lord. Someone suggested we start an academy instead of a college. And so we put out a fleece before the Lord and said, Lord, if this is something you want us to do, we need another teacher and we need some students. And within a week, we were contacted by a graduate of Weimar College in secondary education that was looking for a job, had just married, was living about 40 miles away. And so he became the second teacher, and several young people heard that we were starting a school. And that fall, 1988, we began with 4 students and 2 teachers, Harriet, my wife, being the second teacher. And we began in our home. And each year, for the next few years, the numbers doubled. Second year, we had 8 students, and the third, 17 students. And then I think the next year, we had 23. And all this time, we were looking for a suitable place to begin to establish a school, and that one that met God's requirements. It had a source of water for irrigation and was located away from the cities. Well, then in 1993, we located a 381-acre piece of property at a little river flowing from one corner across it to out the other corner, and had one big house on the property. And so we began Ouachita Hills Academy, which has developed in an amazing way with God's blessing. We provide practical training to young people. It's called a work-study program, where students work half a day and study in the evening and have classes half a day. And it's been thrilling to see many of our graduates mature into strong workers for the Lord and leaders in their fields. Another thing that happened during these years, and soon after that, in 1999, I was elected mayor of Amity, and I served 4 terms, a total of 16 years. That is a story in itself that we won't spend a lot of time with today, but it was an opportunity to be more involved in the community. I love to build and see things improved, and during my 16 years, we built a new city hall and fire station, about 5,000 square feet, and we built the city's first park with a fitness trail and a pavilion and children's play area. And in 2003, God's ongoing providence led us to develop the college that we had dreamed of for 20 years, and that is Ouachita Hills College. We have been training young people to share Jesus wherever they go, and we see now many of our graduates serving as teachers, pastors, evangelists, agricultural workers, literature leaders, and missionaries in other countries as well. And that has been such a blessing to see how God inspires young people, and when they commit their lives to Him and base all of their decisions on His Word and inspired thoughts, how God uses them. So I have been board chairman of Washington Ministries now for 32 years, and that has been a big part of our lives. I've also served the last 8 years on the local conference executive committee, which has been a joy to work with our organized church. And as mayor, I also served on the Southwestern Arkansas Regional Intermodal Authority for 8 years. And before that, I had served for 18 years on the Amity City Council. I've been the board member of several other schools for a number of years, ASI chapter president, and a few other things that we don't need to discuss. But this all leads me to why I'm here today. I want to share the way God has led in my professional path, and how I have changed my emphasis and my way of practicing dentistry from the way I was taught. I guess the first 9 years that I practiced, I pretty well practiced the way I was taught, but I began learning some different things and questioning some of the things that I was taught. And in 1985, I started practice in 1977, and it was in 1985 that I declared my dental practice mercury-free. And there were several factors that led to that decision. One was a patient who his mother called. He was about 21 years of age, and I had placed several very small mercury fillings in his back teeth about 3 years before. His mother called and said that he had some muscle problem that had disabled him. He wasn't able to work anymore. And his mother thought it could be related to the mercury fillings because of things she was reading. Well, initially I was quite defensive in saying that no, that couldn't be possible. But then I told her, as a Christian, since you've asked, I will be willing to change his fillings out to composite fillings, which I did, and he, shortly after that, recovered and was able to go back to work and live a normal life. And that made me think, could I be doing something that is causing symptoms like this? And about this time, there was an article actually in the May issue of the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry in 1984 that I saw a few months, actually about a year later, before I actually saw this article. And it was telling the effects of a small amount of mercury on people's T lymphocytes, which is a very important part of our immune system. And it showed that just a few fillings could bring down the percentage of T lymphocytes by 40%. And I thought, whoa, that's a significant thing. Well, about this time, I also received a letter from some little ladies that sent me some statements from a writer from the 19th century that shared the effects of mercury. Actually, it was talking about calomel, which was a mercury compound used as medicine back in the 1800s. And those statements agreed with some of the science that I was reading. So again, another reason to discontinue the use of mercury. Well, about this time also, I learned of an organization called the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, which is the largest group of biological dentists today, holistic dentists. And they were just beginning and just doing some research, and so I've been affiliated with them ever since. Well, since then, we have learned the protocols that have been developed for removing mercury from people's teeth in a safe way. And it not only helps our patients, but it prevents us from getting a large dose of mercury as well. So then a few years later, the Lord opened my eyes to another major source of toxicity in our mouths, and that is fluoride. And my practice became a fluoride-free practice. It's interesting how God leads us step by step. He doesn't dump all this information on us all at once. It would be overwhelming. So each step, as I learned, I was able to incorporate differences and changes in the dental practice, and it all results in healthier patients as well as a healthier environment for us to work in. Let me see. Well, the next thing that changed for me, let me just change something here on my screen real quick. I don't know how to, I guess it's going to be fine like it is. The next thing that changed in my practice was I discontinued the use of root canal procedures and began to learn the hazards that result from taking the nerves out of teeth and leaving structure attached to the body where there is no circulation and no way for the body to fight those pathogens. And that was more recently, and we have since, as a biological practice, we have many people coming to us with health issues, and many of them, when we take out their mercury and their root canals, find a tremendous improvement in their health. And following that, we found better ways of doing orthodontics and facilitating growth without braces, which also helps people sleep better and treats breathing disorders, sleep apnea, mild to moderate sleep apnea. And so this is actually what gets me up every morning and helps me to be motivated to go to work at my ripe old age here. When most of my classmates have already retired, I'm still enjoying work and finding meaning in helping people. One of the things that has been very meaningful is to have an overtly Christian atmosphere in our office. When people walk in the front doors, they see Nathan Green's painting of a dentist with Jesus standing behind him, and many have told me it brings them real comfort to know that that I'm a Christian, and they also enjoy the calm and relaxed atmosphere, the Christian music that plays in the background. So these are, this is kind of a nutshell story of my life up to this point, and we are enjoying the time we spend with our own children who live in distant states, but we now have 6 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild, and cherish every minute that we can spend with them. We also really enjoy the time we can spend with our college and academy students, often have them in our home, and even though our home is now 5 miles away from the Ouachita Hills campus, it's still close enough that we are much involved. My wife has been the principal of the academy since it began in 1988, and continues to use her talents in inspiring young people and in teaching and administrative work there. There are many other things that we could discuss today, but I am so thankful, and a verse that's been running through my mind recently is, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And in this Thanksgiving season here in America, we are grateful for so many things, and as a Christian, the hope that I have in Jesus and his soon coming, and the presence that he has provided and guidance in my life is certainly something to praise him for. And I know that in the future, as I share some of the details of my professional experience and how God has led and shown better ways of taking care of our health, improving our immune system by keeping our mouths healthy, I am convinced that there are so many connections between our mouths, our oral health, and our general health. So often dentists, when they complete their training, get the idea that they're just working on teeth as inert objects. But the teeth are part of a very dynamic system, very intricately developed and created by God, that we still do not understand everything about it, but we are learning more and more. The challenge is to apply what we learn in changing our habits, the way we eat, the way we sleep, and so many other things that can improve our health. So that's basically my story. Again, I could have gone into a lot more detail, but I think that that covers God's providences and his leading in my life over these last 72 years. May God bless you, and look forward to seeing you again soon on this media. Bye now.
É um desafio muito grande. É um desafio muito grande porque muitas pessoas no mundo nunca ouviram falar o nome de Jesus. Quando eu paro para pensar nisso, realmente eu considero uma responsabilidade muito grande ir até essas pessoas e levar a Cristo para elas. Uma responsabilidade grande que pesa sobre os meus ombros. É completamente diferente porque aqui eu estou vivendo nas montanhas, Então, a minha vida aqui, ela é muito simples, ela é uma vida muito simples. Eu vivo em uma casa feita de bambu, não tenho energia elétrica, não tenho televisão, não tenho internet. No Brasil, eu abro a minha geladeira e lá tem um monte de comida, né? Então, eu tenho aveia, tenho uma espécie de feijão que eles chamam de mango beans, né? Que é muito gostoso quando você faz. Tenho espaguete aqui dentro e tenho extrato de tomate. É uma vida muito simples, eu não tenho luxos e eu digo que assim, com o passar do tempo você se acostuma e você acaba entrando no ritmo e se torna quase que um palauano aqui, quase que um nativo com o passar do tempo, né? Me questionaram, né? Pô, cara, você está com 30 anos de idade, pô, você não pensa em casar, você não pensa em ter uma família, você não pensa em ter uma casa, ter um bom carro e tal, né? Você vai lá viver nas montanhas lá, você não vai ganhar dinheiro, e aí, como é que vai ser a sua vida? Isso aí é algo que minha mãe me perguntou há um tempo atrás, e que muitos amigos me perguntam, né? O sentido para a vida e os significados mudaram para mim, com certeza. A experiência aqui nas montanhas e o serviço missionário proporcionou para mim assim um ministério. E esse ministério é justamente o ministério de servir as pessoas, de servir o mundo, né? De servir as pessoas naquilo que elas precisam, de revelar a Cristo e seu amor para elas. Então, eu percebo que eu não preciso de muitas coisas para viver feliz e viver contente, né? Eu não preciso de muito luxo, de muita coisa, com uma casinha, tendo uma casa para morar, tendo comida para comer, tendo água para beber. Isso aí para mim já é o suficiente, né? A vida simples aqui nas montanhas proporcionou para mim justamente o desejo de viver de maneira simples para o resto da minha vida. Então, acredito que isso foi realmente algo assim sensacional que ocorreu comigo. Eu acredito que o sentido da vida para mim agora é o serviço. Sem o serviço, sem servir os outros, sem buscar satisfazer a necessidade do meu próximo, eu acredito que sem isso não tem sentido viver. Não tem sentido viver. Eu posso ter muitas coisas, posso viver numa casa luxuosa, posso viver na minha cidade, posso seguir a minha vida, mas para mim aquilo não é viver. Para mim viver é estar aqui, é servir essas pessoas, é fazer o trabalho de Deus, né? Nas coisas simples da vida é que está a felicidade. Eu vim para cá, eu coloquei minha vida nas mãos de Deus. Eu falei, Senhor, eu vou para lá fazer o seu serviço, vou para lá fazer o teu trabalho. Eu sei que o Senhor irá cuidar da minha família no Brasil e eu preciso também de uma companheira, de alguém para me acompanhar. Uma esposa, alguém para te acompanhar, especialmente no ministério. E eu sei que Deus ele vai suprir essa minha necessidade, como Ele tem suprido todas as demais coisas agora. O quanto eu amo essas pessoas? Isso é realmente uma pergunta bem difícil de responder, né? Deus ele me amou tanto que Ele entregou a sua vida para mim. Ele entregou a sua vida para que eu pudesse ser salvo, né? Eu acredito que o quanto eu amo essas pessoas justamente corresponde ao quanto eu abri mão no meu país, minha família, as coisas que eu abri mão para estar aqui. Então eu acredito que é justamente o amor de Deus no meu coração por esse povo que me motivou a permanecer aqui. Então é isso que me motiva a viver em uma casa pequena, a não ter um grande estoque de comida, a não ter também luxos, fraco, digamos assim, né? É Deus quem supre as minhas fraquezas com força. O mínimo que eu posso fazer é servi-los naquilo que eu posso.
My name is Larissa Farnsworth. Being a missionary nurse is kind of what I always wanted to do. That's why I actually went to nursing school, and that's what got me through the hardest moments in nursing school is like, but I want to be a missionary nurse and I have to complete this to be able to do that. There was a lot of moments that I really didn't like it. It's just a bad dream now. Being here in Palawan, you know, it's much more real life than my fantasies were about it. People talk about how difficult it is to be a missionary because but I don't have a shower. I scoop water and pour it on myself. I don't have air conditioning. I don't have all these things. Right here, we don't have internet. You have to hike 20 minutes to get to internet. The inconveniences sometimes push me to be who I want to be. And for me, life in the United States hasn't pushed me. I have to push myself. It's I don't want to, kind of be stuck in a hospital for 12-hour shifts. I'm thousands of miles away from my family. I'm constantly reminded that there's a reason that I'm here. Just being there with the people and being sad when they're sad and crying with them and helping them and being able to care for their physical needs. I feel like this year is kind of an extension of my nursing school. If I want to be a missionary nurse, this is my training. Carrie's my teacher, so that if I go, somewhere else in the world, I would have been so completely clueless after nursing school. They don't teach you what to do with dysentery or malaria or a broken arm. Basically, extended clinicals. There's places where people don't even know about Jesus, where there's no Christian, they have no opportunity. I really, really like AFM's mission of reaching the unreached. That's what I can get behind. To go to places that don't have access to the gospel. I don't think I came in and changed everybody's life. I mean, there were other SMs before me, there'll be other SMs after me. But what I can give is each day to get up and show them a little picture of Christ, and that's not going to, revolutionize their world. I hope that my influence and my character, as I give my life to Christ every day, I hope that can be a positive influence for them. Oh, it's absolutely a good idea to take a year to be a student missionary.